Okay, let me start the session. Okay. So till now, I think you have been familiarized with class, objects, constructors, calling functions in class and writing functions for class, everything. So today we are going to see about relationships in the classes. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So today we are going to see about relationships in the class. So relationships is used to connect two classes and to to include two classes so that we need not write the class again and again. Okay, so we have two types of relationships. One is aggregation composition, the other is parental child relationships. So we are going to see the aggregation, composition, and inheritance relationships today. Okay, let me get into the topic. So we are going to see what are all these relationships, why we are going for relationships, and what is the usage of all these relationships and inheritance, which is the very essential concepts of OOP. Okay, whenever we talk about object oriented programming, whenever we talk about object oriented programming, all people will say only two core words: reusability, okay, and encapsulation. Okay, so these polymorphism, so these reusability and encapsulation can be obtained in two ways. One is inherited, three ways. One is these relationships, dependencies. The other is inheritance. The next is polymorphism. Okay, so only using these three things we attain this reusability and encapsulation. I think encapsulation you have already studied. Have you studied access specifiers already? Does access specifiers taught already, covered already? Anyone? Private, public, all these concepts have you studied already? Okay, So this access specifiers helps you in encapsulation. As you already studied, you know about that. So today we are going to see the concept reusability, which means I will have one class or one object which already exists. Normally, you know how to create your object. So normally, how will you create your object? You will give your object name and you will call a class with off function. Okay. So these things you might have seen in list, queues, everything. List, set, dictionary, wherever you used. So I will say L1 equal to list of. So here in Python, everything is object including data types that you already know. So you already know how to declare a object. So whenever I declare a object, which means I have a class already. So this list class already has methods and attributes, everything. What I am going to do? So I am going to make use of it in some other class or functions. So that is reusability. So that for that reusability, we need to know about these important concepts, which are relationships and inheritance. That's why, because of this reusability, encapsulation, and your overriding, over returning concepts, your OOPS has become, yeah, for list you put square bracket. So if you want to access as list, I can either do as this way, I can put this way, I can declare a list this way, either I can, now is it visible? So either I can go for a square bracket or I can declare a list using this object class. So list is a class. You already know. If I want to declare a class, what I will say? I will say, if suppose I am going to declare a class for student, I will tell class student. I will write something and then I will declare a object as I will create a variable to that object. And I will create that object by calling the constructor, which is student. So the student is the class name. For this student, I am creating the object. So to create the object, I need to write, I can make use of my default constructor, which I need not declare here, or I need to declare my own constructor using unique function. So self is compulsory in all your methods. This self I need to compulsorily put for all my functions, whatever it may be. Even I don't have any parameters, I need to include this self. Okay, which means this class. So this variable function belongs to this class. That's why I'm putting self. So likewise, this list is also a class inside your Python. So I can create a variable like this also. So in same way, I can create a class and I can make use of that class in another class. That is your reusability. So for this reusability, I need these concepts: aggregation, dependency, and inheritance. So now I will give you a situation. I'm going to design a chair. Okay, everything can be considered as class and object. So I have a class. So I have a object table. Okay, I have a object table. Okay, so what are all the properties I may have for a table? What are all the properties I can have for a table? What is a property? 4 legs. So leg is a attribute, which is a property. Then how will you identify property and method? Color, material, good color, material. So all these things are properties. So the properties are variables which are going to get values to describe how that table is going to be. All those things are properties or attributes which I will have inside my class. So what will be my method? What I am going to do with my table? What are all the functions? What are all the works that table can do? That will become my methods always. Okay, size, dimension, very good. Whatever you say, I will include size, dimension. Okay, so all these things. Okay, so will be properties. So writing, write will become by method. Okay, generally I will say attributes and functions or methods. So methods will describe you the work it is going to do. The attributes will describe you the properties what that class is going to have. So now if in all these properties, so without leg a table cannot exist. Without material a table cannot exist. Okay, so these two are important properties which I can say, but this color need not be a important property. Color illama kuda you can have a table. ஒரு டேபிளுக்கு கலர் இருக்கணும்னு அவசியம் கிடையாது. Okay, so these are strong variables and this is a weak variable. Okay, these are strong properties and it is a weak property. Without color I can have a table, but without legs and without material I do not have a table. So these will be considered as strong property and this will be a weak property which I can also even skip. So if suppose I can say this legs and materials are aggregated property to my table. Okay, so if how to identify the relations? If a passage is given, how to identify? So these relationships, these aggregation, dependency, composition all comes under properties, defining properties. And this inheritance is a different property in which I am going to connect one class to another class. So in inheritance I am going to connect one class to another class. So if a passage is given, how to identify whether it is a relationship or inheritance? Okay, so how to design? If a passage is given, if I am saying you as, I am giving you a passage like this, a table which has 4 legs made okay used to write. So if this is the passage, how I will identify a attribute and a method. So which contains this has relationships. If I include the word has, contain, include, all will become your attributes. Okay, whatever I used to write as a verb, normally how I will decide? all these nouns will become properties, which will be assigned to a variable. All these verbs will become a method or function. Okay. So these attributes and dependencies, I am going to decide on this nouns or with keywords has, contains, include. If I get keyword like this, I am going to use it. So in real life, objects interact with other objects. This is table. Okay. So you can consider a object. Okay. So I am going to buy a teapot set. I have only one table now. If you think I am going to buy a teapot set. A set means or a sofa set. A set may have many connections. Okay, I can have a table along with a chair. Or if you go for a dining table set. So if you say my object is dining table, which will not come alone. So always your dining table will come along with table plus chair. Okay, so there I need to connect two objects. One is table, the other is chair. Okay, so I may have a table class separately. I may have a chair class separately. So in my dining table, I can combine both these classes inside one class. Okay, so these both table and chair is going to communicate with each other. I give one more example. This is object. In process, I will give you an example. So we all are faculty. If I am going to have an exam class. Okay. So my exam assessment may have assignment, which may be one class. I can have internal assessment, which is CAT, which may be one class. I can have one more assessment, which is a final end sem exam or semester exam, which may be another class. Okay. So here, all these three classes are going to interact each other to make one class exam. So in real life, any objects can interact with other objects. So your customer is going to buy a mobile object. So your customer can have an address. So your customer has an address. If I go for customer, I will have lot of properties, name, phone number, address. So address is one of the property. Address is one of the property inside my customer. Okay, address is one of the property. Why I am saying it as property? It is I am going to get it as a variable. So address is one of the property inside my customer. So now this customer may have lot more properties. And address can also have lot more properties. If I say address. So address will have a street name, door number, city. So inside address, I can create lot more properties. Now this address need to be connected, interconnected with customer. So if we take that exam, same exam. Okay. So I have assignment. So inside assignment. So assignment may be one class. Inside assignment, what I will have? I have unit 1 property. What is the mark for unit 1? One property. What is the mark for unit 2? Another property. What is the mark for unit 3? Another property. If I go for cat, I have 3 cats. Marks for cat 1, cat 2, cat 3. So my assignment unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, and again cat 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 2, unit 3 need to be interconnected with exam. Okay. So if I am going to connect two classes, all the attributes and properties also need to be interconnected to the class which I am going to connect. Okay. Now I have a mobile, I have a product. So here mobile is a product. You come here, I have to say customer has an address. Here I will say customer has an address. Okay. Here customer is not the address. Address is the attribute or property which is inside my customer. So my customer has an address. I will mention the relation as customer has a address. But if I say mobile, I will say mobile is a product. I will not say mobile has a product. Okay. So here my relationship is mobile is a product. So I have two types of properties here. There I have has, here I have is here. Okay. So that has comes under aggregation property and is here comes under inheritance property. Okay. So here also that need not be customer can have only one address. Customer can have more than one address. Even I can have office address, one permanent address, one temporary address. So my customer can have many address. So based on those things, I am going to identify my or define my relationships. So if I get is a in my passage, or I'm going to define a parent-child relationship. Cat, tiger is a cat family, likewise. Okay, so dining table is a table category. If likewise, I'm going to use is a property in my class or my passage, that is inheritance, which means I am going to inherit the properties of one class to the other class. It is parent-child relationship. So always we will say, so our child will inherit our properties or our grandparents' properties. Okay. So inheritance is the same word as how we are using for biological companion. So this here also inheritance follows a parent-child property, which means my dining table is going to inherit the properties of table, as well as chair. Okay, so that is parent-child relationship. It will be mentioned with the is a keyword. The next is aggregation. Aggregation is, it need not be strong. It may be a weak property, which has independent life cycle. Okay, which means if I say customer and address, address can be separately combined with some other person. So I'm having a class address. So I'm having a class address. Okay, I'm having variables, street name, door number, okay, city. So this address can be used for student class also, as well as customer class also. This can be used for both student as well as customer. Now student class லயும் யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம், customer class லயும் யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம். Do you follow? So it has a separate independent property. Even this itself can be a class. இது எதோடய கனெக்ட் பண்ணாம இருந்தாலும் it will work as a class. It will have a meaning. So that is your aggregation. Composition is strong strong relationship, which means without this will not exist. Okay, so if I say dining table, if I say dining table, I have both table plus chair. Here chair is aggregation, but table is composition, because I can buy only table without chairs. I can buy a dining table only without chairs. And I can also, if I say dining table, definitely there should be a table. Okay, chair is not mandatory. I can buy or I may leave. Okay, so composition is which will not exist without this class. That is composition. So a college has a department. So a department cannot survive without a college on its own. Department definitely need to be added to any of the classes. அது ஆஃபீஸா இருக்கலாம், காலேஜா இருக்கலாம், ஏதோ ஒரு கிளாஸோட ஆட் பண்ணா மட்டும்தான் அந்த கிளாஸுக்கு மீனிங் வரும். On its own independent it cannot work அப்படின்னா that is composition. Even different it will work அப்படின்னா that is association. Okay, so aggregation is a has a relationship. So it need not be has here, we can also say as include, contains. So as I said, customer has name, age, phone number and also a address. So I am going to include this address inside this class, inside my customer class. So I can have a customer class. This customer class, so init is the constructor. So this customer class have, you imagine, name and some phone number. Okay, so okay, so I can include my address inside my customer class as a variable. So here I can say address equal to self dot address. Okay, so which means I'm including address object inside my customer class. So customer has a address or customer contains address. This contains relationship is your aggregation and composition. Okay. So now this customer, can you please off your mic? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now this address customer has a address. So our customer contains address. So I can make use of the address as one of the variable object of address class as one of the variable inside another class. This is your hash a relationship. Okay. So I will give you example. So in address also I will have a constructor. So I have two variables, street and city. So self dot street equal to street. Self dot city equal to city. Okay. So I have two classes. One for customer, and customer is going to have the address here. So while declaring, first I need to declare the class which is contained. Okay. So first I need to declare my address class, or else it will throw you error, because this customer will go and check for address. If I have not already declared address, it will throw you error. So first I need to define the class which I am going to include. So A1 equal to address of, so street, city. Okay. Now I can move this address, this A1 as an attribute to my customer class. So again I can create a customer object C1 equal to customer of. So my customer constructor has three variables or properties. One is name, okay, phone number, and then you see here I am going to move the object what I have created. So this A1 class is defined separately, and it is moved as object to my customer class. And this object work as property or attribute. So if an object work as property or attribute to another class, then it is a hash a relationship. Okay, we see this example. So in it I am declaring. So again view details. So now self.address, street, self.area, self.pin code. So all these are values of my address class. So first I need to create the address class, and then I need to include this object inside my customer object declaration. Do you follow? So this is your aggregation. So next, private, public access specifiers you studied. So if I declare a class private, it cannot be used in any of the class, even it has a or is a relationship. நான் ரிலேஷன்ஷிப்போட கிளாஸ்ல கூட ஒரு ஆப்ஜெக்டை பிரைவேட்டா டிக்ளேர் பண்ணிட்டேன் அப்படின்னா என்னால ஆக்சஸ் பண்ண முடியாது. ஸோ இட் ஷுட் பி பப்ளிக் ஆர் ப்ரொடெக்டட். ஸோ நவ் யூ கேன் predict the output. Any one of you? What will be the output? Yes. So your color will be green. So now I have brand and case. Okay. Here I am displaying the case color, but this case is an object of this class which has a property color. So this color is automatically included in this mobile. So these two classes are interconnected. So this class has a relationship with mobile. Case class is having a relationship with mobile class. Okay. So even though I declared two classes, three classes for case. This is C1 with black, C2 with white, C3 with black. But after C3, I am changing it to green, as this is not a private member anywhere. இங்க எதுவுமே நமக்கு private number இல்ல. That's why I am able to change this black to green. I am able to move the value. So the next is inheritance. So we will solve one more problem for aggregation, which you are going to solve. You are only going to tell me. Now I will give you the passage. A student with roll number and name has marks with subject and mark. Okay, so this is my passage. It is inheritance or aggregation composition, dependency relationship. What relationship the passage has? Either inheritance or aggregation composition. Anyone? What relationship this passage has? It has word has aggregation. It's aggregation or composition. Okay, so now you replied it's not a inheritance, aggregation, composition. So what are the two classes now? What are the two classes now? Student and marks. Okay, so student has two attributes. So student has two attributes, roll number and name, and marks has two attributes, subject and mark. Okay, which is going to have two attributes, which are name and roll number. Okay, so I need to include my marks inside my class. Okay, so because the statement is student has marks, so self dot roll number equal to roll number, self dot name equal to name, self dot marks equal to marks. Okay, now I have another class marks, which is going to have another two attributes, subject and mark. Okay, so self dot subject equal to subject, self dot mark equal to mark. Okay. So now which object I need to create first? Which object I need to create first?
Student name.
For which class I need to create object? For student class or mark class?
Student class.
Student class. then what object I will give here? If I create student class first, what object I will give here? So, as mark object is used inside student, my mark class has to be defined first or created first. So, M1 equal to marks of, so I have a subject and I have a mark. So, that object M1 I need to pass as variable here, because I am going to create, use this marks inside the student. Okay. So, if you get a aggregate composition relationship, that means has a relationship, I am going to move the object as a property or as a variable to this another class. That is aggregation composition. Do you follow? So, if I want to display this, so I write a method so self is compulsory. I can directly print roll number. So I can say print of self dot roll number, comma, self dot name. Okay. But for marks, this mark is an object. I cannot directly give self dot mark. If I give like this, it will print the object ID. If I give like this, we will execute this. So because you call பண்ணு. Okay. So this mark, okay, you will get problem. You will get the address, object ID, address, because I am passing the object ID. If I want to print all these things, how to print them? So after this mark, I need to access that mark class object. So self dot mark is the class. In that class, I have a object subject. Again, in that class, I have the object. I have the property mark. Okay. So in one class, I can access the property or variable of another class using with dot object. Do you follow? Mark, in the markum, in the subjectum, mark in the class oda variable. So, where or class oda variable, how I can retrieve? Using that class name and dot. So, I need to give marks dot subject, marks dot mark. You see? So, Python and 90 is mark, Priya in CS 47 is name and roll number. So, this is about aggregation. If it is a inheritance, inheritance means I am going to get the property, which means, see, if so, I can have a table class which has legs, okay, which has material, as you said, which has color, which has size, everything. Okay, so this can be used and derived for dining table. Or teapot. I can have dining table, I can have teapot, I can have a reading table, I can have a that makeup table, something. So it may be a makeup table, or it may be a dining table, or it may be some teapot, or it may be a reading table. Okay, so the properties as the properties of table, size, material, legs, are all common to all these things. But it will have a separate property also for its own. So if I say a makeup table, it will have a mirror. If I say a teapot, it will be short. If I say a reading table, or if I say a dining table, it also contains chair. So if I say dining table, it comes along with chair. If I say a teapot, it will have a short, it is a short table. If I say a reading table, it may have a lamp, reading lamp. So all these are tables which has a common general property, which are all common to all these objects, but it also have some extra specific properties which is common only to these types of objects. So if that is the case, I can create a general class table with all general properties which can be used by anyone. And I can create the separate class and object with only the properties which it has. So which means I am going to use the property of table or functions of table okay with these objects. So I am going to separate the general properties and I am going to have it as a separate class which can be used by many more classes. Okay, so that is your inheritance. So which means I am going to derive a new class from the existing class table. So I am going to derive a new class makeup table from the existing class table, which is a generalized class, and this makeup table can make use of all the properties and methods defined for this table along with a specific additional property created only for this makeup table. That is your inheritance. Okay, full actually oops அப்படிங்கிறதே ஒரு இதுவா ஆனதுக்கு காரணமே because of this inheritance and reusability. So ஒரு கிளாஸை வேற எங்கேயோ இருக்கிற ஒரு கிளாஸை என்னால மறுபடியும் நான் எழுத தேவையில்லை. அதோட அடிஷனல் ப்ராப்பர்ட்டியை மட்டும் எழுதிட்டு ஆல்ரெடி இருக்கிறத யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம். ஸோ தட்ஸ் வை இட் பிகம் பாப்புலர். So they have Infosys have given a separate example. So I'm having a online shopping. So it has different types of phones, feature phones, smartphones. So all belong to one category phone. So my phone can be divided into two parts: smartphone, feature phone. My phone can be divided into two parts: smartphone and feature phone. So normally you see this brand, price, camera, type. This brand, price and camera you see both are common properties. Here also I have brand, here also I have price, here also I have camera. And check the methods: buy, return, exchange. All are common. So I can define a general class phone with these common properties, and I can inherit these common properties in these two separate phones. That is your inheritance. So both class have lot in common. So I can separate those common classes properties and make it as a separate class, which means I am generalizing the class. So if I say like this, if I create a class phone with all the general attributes and methods, this phone is called as generalized class. Okay, concept is called as generalization, which means I am combining the classes, getting all my common attributes and making it as a generalized template. These two, smartphone and feature phone, are called as specialized class, and this process is called as specialization, which means I am adding some extra fitting or extra attribute to the generalized class and making it as a specialized class. Okay, so and also this phone is called a parent class, and the smartphone and feature phones are called as child class, because these smartphone and feature phone are inheriting the properties of your phone. Okay. So you see here I have phone with brand, price, camera and with one function. So these feature phone and smartphone can refer to this phone. So if you check this class, in the mono property variable in the class la irukad. So the generalized we have divided. So this is a relationship. Okay. So the inherited class are called as child class, subclass or derived class, and the parent class, inherited class, is called as parent, super or base class. The concept of creating these parent, super and base class is called generalization. The concept of creating the child, sub and derived class is called as specialization, all together called as inheritance. So this has a easier relationship. I will say as easier. So apple is a fruit. Toyota is a car. Okay. I will put a easier word inside the passage. So what is the advantage of inheritance? The main advantage is reusability. Okay. In same way, if I want to change some value, okay, so I have here in smartphone it has OS size something. So along with it, if I want to add a attribute, I need not write it again. Okay. So it can be handled separately. Phone can be handled separately. Smartphone can be handled separately. Future phone can be handled separately. If anything affects in future phone, any bug in future phone, it will not affect your smartphone. ஸ்மார்ட்ஃபோனில் நான் ஃபியூச்சர் ஃபினோட வேல்யூ எதுவுமே யூஸ் பண்ண போகிறதில்ல. இதை நான் தனியாக ஐ கேன் ரீரைட் unless until I add to my phone, my smartphone can work along with my phone. Need not worry about my future phone. Okay. So it will, as reusing, it will save time. If I'm going to bring a new product instead of future phone, I'm going for some iPhone something. Smartphone la dhaan varum. So some other thing, tablet. If I'm going to include tablet, I need not write it again. I can make use of the phone class and I can only add on the tablets feature as a separate class. So the syntax, I need to write within bracket. So I have to say, if I'm going to use mark, so I say as Dilip is a student. Okay, so I can say Priya is a student. I have to create as Priya inside that student. So I have to write within my bracket. So I write it for phone itself, class phone inside first phone. I will have some property in it. Color I have. So just color I have self. Okay. So self dot color. I mean, for example, I am including only one property. It may be any number of properties. Okay. So I am going to have a smartphone. So within bracket, I have to give phone. Okay. So I don't have a separate property. Okay. So if I don't have a separate property, I can include one letter here. You have seen the loops, right? In loops, for flow of control, you might have seen in your first module, you might have seen 3 keywords for flow control of loops. What are they? Break, and what are the 2 more keywords you studied along with break? Pass and continue. Okay. So now you have the usage of pass. If I put pass, which means I don't have any extra feature, I'm going to use only features of phone. I can say as pass. Okay. So I can create the object for phone. And I can make use of the inheritance. If suppose I have an extra feature OS, so I will define a constructor for it, def. So I say OS, I include only one attribute, and then I need to call upon my parent class. இங்க ஸ்மார்ட் ஃபோன் தான் இருக்கு. எனக்கு இந்த ஃபோனோட ப்ராப்பர்ட்டி இங்க இன்க்ளூட் ஆகணும் உள்ள அப்படின்னா I need to call upon that constructor also inside my subclass or parent child class. So I will say self dot os equal to self.os equal to os. So now what I will do, I will call phone init function with self.color, which means phone order constructor I am calling inside my child class. So this is parent class. Parent class constructor is called inside my child class. Instead of that class name, I can use the keyword super. Super is the keyword which is used to define your parent class. Immediate parent class. So na unur class inheritance class kuda podalam. Class. So I can say tablet, which is the subclass of smartphone. If I put a super here, it resembles only immediate parent, which is smartphone. Missing what missing? Okay. So if you don't have anything to do, all the features are same, I can say pass. Which means I don't have any extra feature. So I can create a object to phone. If suppose, if you have extra feature, if I have an extra feature, I need to create the object for subclass. S1 equal to smartphone of Android comma blue. Okay. So if you have different class that, and then for this blue to be assigned to your future class, I need to call my future phone. And the functions what you defined here, if I say print function here, print off, sorry, def print detail. So print off self dot color. So that function also I can call using my parent class. So subclass. So I can say s1 dot print detail off, because all the methods and all the methods what you write will be inherited here. இதுக்கு என்ன அர்த்தம்னா இந்த ரெண்டு கிளாஸையும் கம்பைன் பண்ணி இந்த ஃபங்க்ஷனும் இங்க வந்து சேர்ந்துருக்குன்னு அர்த்தம். So all the methods of my parent class I can handle with my subclass object. So that is your inheritance. So you need to give base class name, which is your parent class name, in bracket. Pass is used only when you don't have any feature, separate extra features. All brand, price, camera I have. I don't going to have any separate feature, so that I have put pass. If I want to use a separate feature as OS in my smartphone, what I will do? I will put a init function and I will call OS. Along with that, I need to move all these variable: price, brand, camera. Inside that, I need to call my super function. So super dot super or phone dot underscore underscore init of, I need to send price, brand, everything. Do you follow? So if you don't have any extra feature, you can directly put pass. See here, I am having future phone, creating an object for future phone, but calling my by function, which is defined inside my parent class. So when I say inheritance, all attributes and methods of parent class can be used in child class, provided nothing should be private. Private nu kuduthittingala, adu inherit relation eduvume panna mudiyadhu. It should be public. Ipo idhula endha variable ime na private nu sollitena, I can't even inherit. Okay. The attributes, behaviors, methods, whatever you use will get inherited, but your private variables will not be inherited. So parent class cannot access anything from your child class. So you have different types of inheritance. Single level, just one class parent, so phone and smartphone, and then multi-level, which is phone, smartphone, product, which means I return tablet here, tablet, which is a smartphone, which means smartphone is accessing, tablet is accessing smartphone is accessing phone. So that is multi-level. Hierarchical, as I said, table makes use of both dining table makes use of both table and chair. That is hierarchical. And multiple, hierarchical is two things are going to use one thing. So both smartphone and future phone is going to use product phone. That is your if I say like this, future phone, which is table. So if I say class future phone, which is going to use phone, here both future phone and smartphone are going to use phone. That is hierarchical. Multiple is what I said, I will put a comma. So I say class dining table, which use both class, which is table and class. I'm going to use two classes. So that is your multiple inheritance. So that's all about today's topic. Any doubts?